most real estate agents end up failing within a few years. I think it's like 80%.
87.
Wow.
87%.
87?
Yeah.
87% fails within the first 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I think it's like 87 the first year, and then it's like even worse in the first 5. So like nobody really makes it past the first, and then a real small handful make it past the 5.
What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, owner of Swamp Rabbit Moving, and I got my co-host Ray Mack with Mack of All Trades, and also a real estate agent with the Damian Hall Group. Today we got a special guest, Michael Smith, owner of Bluefield Realty. Michael, how you doing, man?
I'm good, guys. How are y'all?
Pretty good.
Doing good.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me here.
Tell us a little bit about what got you started in the real estate game. Before you founded Bluefield, were you in real estate?
I was, yeah. So I guess it depends on how far back you want to go, but
Whatever your story is. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, what really got me interested in real estate in the first place was growing up playing Monopoly.
Okay,
Cool.
Yeah.
nice.
You know, just the thought of accumulating assets and other people having to pay you rent, it just seemed really interesting to me. So,
How good were you at buying the Parkway?
oh man, you know, Boardwalk, Parkway and Boardwalk.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you always go for.
I love Monopoly. Nobody ever wants
Yeah.
to play a full game.
It just takes so freaking long.
Yeah, for real. I think I had one game one time that took like 3 days because we had to keep stopping and starting. But yeah, that'd be fun. We should get some guys together and play
I'd be
Monopoly.
down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So your love for real estate came from playing Monopoly. How'd you in turn turn that into a career?
Yeah, so, you know, kind of kidding, kind of not. Grew up playing Monopoly, got super interested in real estate. And then in college, I took a class called Commercial Real Estate Investment Analysis,
Okay.
all about like multifamily projects and stuff like that. Got me super interested. Outside of college, so I got a degree in finance, started doing financial planning. Did that for about a year. And, you know, I loved it. I was passionate about it, but it just wasn't quite clicking with me for some reason. I felt like I was more... I guess more interested in my clients' success than they were, if that makes sense. You know, I would try to get people on a budget and on a plan to start investing for retirement, and it was like pulling teeth. You know, people are just so focused on the short term, trying to get them to think long term was kind of difficult.
Yeah.
So I did that for about a year, and it just wasn't quite working out the way I wanted it to. And after that, got recruited into the mortgage business, and really, really loved doing that. A super fun business. Did that for about 3 years, but just kind of got burned out. You know, real estate, the real reason I switched over to real estate was so that I could have more control over the client experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
In the mortgage business, as the loan officer, you're really the face of the experience. You know, you take the application, you start the relationship, and then you pass the file off to other people in the back office. And no matter how good you are as a loan officer, you're really only as good as your processor, your underwriter, your funder, your closer, you know, all the people behind the scenes. So, you know, in mortgages, a lot of things can go wrong. There's a lot of moving parts. And just got kind of burned out with that. And then in 2016, that's when I decided to quit my job, quit the mortgage job, moved up here to South Carolina from Florida. Took like a month off trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I was toying around with the idea of going back into financial services or staying in mortgages, but, you know, just doing it up here instead of down in Florida. And then the third option was getting my real estate license. And ultimately, that's what I decided to do. You know, when I was in mortgages, I had the opportunity to be the preferred lender for a handful of really cool real estate companies down there. So I got to kind of see behind the scenes of what some successful agents do, what some successful real estate companies do.
Sure.
And yeah, I guess the rest is history.
Nice. I bet you're glad you chose real estate, right?
Good time.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. I mean, just like any other industry, it has its ups and downs.
Yeah.
Right. But real estate is one of those businesses where you can get in with very, very little capital up front. You know, you don't have to have a bunch of inventory. You don't have to necessarily buy a bunch of equipment or hire a bunch of people right out of the gate.
Sure.
So, you know, I got my real estate license in July of 2016. Hung my hat with a local brokerage. I was there for about 3 years. Started building a team there. And then in 2019, went independent, started my own brokerage.
Awesome.
What kind of cued the shift into going independent and starting your own brokerage?
I think it was always in the back of my head. I think that was kind of always the plan from the beginning. In South Carolina, you have to have your license for 3 years before you can get your broker's license.
Oh, okay.
So it's just going with the plan.
It was just timing.
Did you still door knock and do like normal real estate stuff when you became a broker right away?
You know, I think I door knocked for about 20 minutes
and then gave it up.
Gave it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a million different ways to get business.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. So many people get their real estate license thinking that it's going to be super easy. And it's definitely not as glamorous as they make it look on TV. A lot of people think I've got a lot of connections. I've got a big sphere of influence. So I'm going to get my license and my phone is just going to start ringing with referrals. And that's really not the way it works.
Yeah.
Most real estate agents end up failing within a few years. I think it's like 80%.
87.
Wow.
87%.
87?
Yeah.
87% fails within the first 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I think it's like 87 the first year, and then it's like even worse in the first 5. So like nobody really makes it past the first, and then a real small handful make it past 5.
Yeah, and I witnessed that firsthand at the company I was at before. I would just see so many new agents come in the door and spin their wheels and struggle to figure out how am I going to get business. And then 6 months later, they were, going back and getting a real job, so to speak,
Cool. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a million different ways to get business. And I think that's a blessing and a curse because people see all these different things that they could do and they don't really narrow down on the one thing they should do.
Yeah.
They try door knocking, or they try cold calling, or they try buying leads, they try marketing, they this and that, open houses, and they kind of go back and forth between a bunch of different things. They don't really get good at anything, and they don't give anything enough time to really see the results. They're just kind of changing their strategy all over the place.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, it's tough to get traction, especially in the beginning. And then you say like it doesn't take much to start up, but then the cost of things when you're going can be tough because paying for leads, things like that, it can add up quickly. And then if you're not getting anything out of it, it can kind of burn you out quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a low barrier to entry. For $800, you can get your real estate license.
Yeah.
The cost of the pre-licensing course and the exam and all that. So you can get in relatively inexpensively, but then, yeah, like you said, you've got a burn rate, right? Because
Yeah.
you're not making any money until you start closing deals. And it
Yeah.
can take, 60, 90, 120 days before you actually start to see that commission coming in.
Yeah,
So,
and when we had Aubrey on, she was pretty much pushing the whole get a coach, first thing off the bat and pay for leads. And that's just, you got to just spend money, whatever you have to do, get a loan, spend money. And that's tough for a lot of people.
yeah, I mean, for me, literally the day I got my license, I started spending money on Zillow and Realtor.com and Google
Yeah.
and things like that. But, swiping a credit card and hoping
Yeah.
that it would come
Yeah.
back at some
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
I really love leads where if you put a certain amount of money in, you get a certain amount of money back, and then once you can really figure that out, then it comes down to swiping your credit card,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think obviously you need to measure and track and make sure that what you're spending on money is actually getting you enough money back for it to make sense. Because there's a bunch of different places out there that will sell you leads or will take your money, right? Everyone will take your money and
Yeah.
say,
For sure.
I'll run your social media and I'll get this and that, and they make
Yeah.
all these promises. So you definitely need to be careful and hold your marketing dollars accountable and kind of
Absolutely.
measure. I'm a big fan of setting a budget and then spreading that money around in a few different places instead of just putting it all in one spot.
Absolutely.
Give it enough time, to measure different ROIs, see what's working and what isn't, and then at some point down the road, kind of reallocate your capital to what's working the best for you.
Absolutely. So you've owned your brokerage for going on 4 years now, right?
Yeah, May of 2023 is gonna be 4 years independent.
Nice. So walk us through what it's looked like those past 4 years. Like year one, just kind of walk us through the years.
Okay.
Yeah, like volume and
Yeah.
amount
So
of agents.
when we split from the franchise to become independent in 2019, we had I think 6 real estate agents because I'd started building a team at the other company. So we had I think 6 real estate agents and 3 people on staff. And then by the end of 2020, we had 30 agents and 12 people on staff.
Wow.
In 2020, we did just shy of 100 million in volume. It's like 97 million in sales volume. And in 2021, we did like 277 million. And then in 2022, we did 409 million.
Nice.
And as of right now, we have 129 real estate agents. I
Wow.
think.
Man.
So it's definitely been, a crazy ride the last few years for sure.
Yeah. So a lot of these real estate agents there's a lot of like part-time real estate agents at brokerages and stuff. Do y'all have like a lot of those at Bluefield?
We have some. It's definitely the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
A lot of real estate companies, and I'm not knocking anybody.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own different business model, right? But most real estate brokerages, it's really just kind of a numbers game, like throw it against the wall and see what sticks. If you have a license, you can come work here type of
Yeah.
thing. And that's because, like we said, 87% of real estate agents are going to get out of the business at some point, right? So for most real estate brokerages, the strategy is just hire as many agents as you possibly can
Mm-hmm.
because it's a high turnover sales force. A lot of people are going to get out of the business. Very small percentage of them are going to stick around. And of the ones that stick around, on average, they're not selling that many houses. I think the
Yeah,
average
yeah.
real estate agent sells like 6 or 7 homes a year.
Man.
So our strategy has been a little bit different. We've really focused on quality first, finding great people. We really treat it more like an interview selection process, like the same way we do when we hire staff.
Yeah.
So, we'll sit down and now I have big shout out to Kelly Stovall, my VP of Growth and Development. She was the first member of our executive leadership team. So her job is really to help us find and keep great people. So we have a process we run people through. We'll sit down, do a face-to-face interview, and it's really like mutually we need to decide that it's a good fit.
Yeah.
And we've actually said no to more people than we've said yes to as far as agents wanting to come work for Bluefield. So we really focus on quality, finding the right people, and then really investing heavily in giving them the tools, the resources, and the support to be successful. So we have a pretty robust lead program. We invest a lot in technology. We have a really high staff to agent ratio. So our agents are getting access to more, behind the scenes support staff than they do at most other brokerages. So we really do a lot to help make our agents successful.
Yeah.
And our average agents sell like 18 homes a year. So it's a lot more than the market
Yeah,
average.
it's nice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it seems like the strategy's working.
Yeah, and we have a really low turnover rate too. And I'd say about half of the agents that have joined us have been brand new, fresh out of real estate school,
Yeah.
and we're seeing that they're making it. We don't have that super high drop off rate like the industry does as a whole.
Cool.
So
Do you think that's where the 87% that fell and the 13%? Do you think the difference is the back end help that they have, like the back end staff and the support,
it's a big part of it.
mentorship?
Yeah, it's a big part of it. I think most people get into this business not realizing that it's a business,
Yeah,
and they don't have a plan of where their clients are going to come from.
for sure.
Like if you were to go into any other business, whether it's opening a restaurant or opening a moving company or whatever, right? You've got to have a plan of how am I going to get my customers?
Yeah.
And so most people, like we talked about, they get in the business and they try a bunch of different things, but they don't really give anything enough time to work or enough effort to work. They just kind of sit around and hope their phone rings. So,
Yeah.
we really coach our agents through developing a strategy of where their business is going to come from, whether it's stuff they're going to do on their own, like door knocking, cold calling, et cetera, or if they're going to be a part of our lead program. But yeah, we're very intentional about helping our agents ramp up and get successful.
That's
Cool.
awesome.
So what are some difficulties that you faced going from small brokerage and then even just with that growth doubling year over? What are some of the difficulties you've come across?
Oh gosh, yeah, I think as your business grows, especially if you grow quickly, you have to put systems in place. A lot of people they try to build a box based on what their needs are today. These are the needs of my business right now. You need to take kind of a longer term approach and think about what are the needs of the business going to be 2 years from now, 3 years from now. The way that we do things, is this going to work if we were doing 10 times as much business, 100 times as much business? So it's kind of the thought of putting in an 8-lane highway, right? Even if you don't quite need it yet. When you're building out the systems and the infrastructure of your business, you need to have that long-term approach and realize that you're going to grow into it. And so I think just looking at things from that long-term perspective as far as developing your systems and your infrastructure. But also I think some of the biggest challenges we've had is just people related. The business is full of a bunch of people, right?
A lot of personalities. A lot of
A
egos.
lot of different personalities.
Yeah.
People are wired differently. As you grow and you bring other people in your organization, it's inevitable. You're going to have, conflicts, and you're going to have to fire people, right, and hold people accountable. When I first got into the business, I had heard the phrase "hire slow, fire fast," and I told myself that's what I was going to do, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I made the same mistakes that everybody else does.
Well, it's so easy to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you really have an urgent need that you need to fill,
Yeah.
the temptation is just to, hire the first person that seems somewhat good,
Interested,
just
yeah.
because, it'll save you so much time tomorrow.
Oh, you
Yeah.
got a pulse? Okay. You're hired.
Yeah.
Right.
I've had a lot of guys be like, "Hey, do you need help?" That means you're on full time, buddy.
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah. Don't say
Yeah.
that to me.
Yeah. So just the staffing side and even on the agent side, just with personalities, and everyone has different expectations. And so the bigger you get, the more people you have, the more of your time is going to be spent managing those types of situations.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely pushed me to grow as a leader, just learning how to communicate better, communicate more often and more effectively, more proactively to try to address some of these things before they happen. But Yeah, I'd say the biggest challenge we've had is just the growing pains of like literally half the people in our company have been here less than 6 months.
Yeah.
you know, 'cause
Wow.
we're growing so fast.
Yeah.
Wow.
I could see the difficulties in that. So you said you're really big into technology and you're really big into systems and processes. Do y'all run like the EOS like program through your business? Or?
Similar. So Gino Wickman Traction, right?
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So I read that book a few years ago and really liked it. We don't run that exactly, like
Mhm.
that system exactly, but we have, we have a core leadership team.
Yeah.
There's 4 of us. We meet every Monday morning, and we've got a list of things that we go over. We have our objectives, for the quarter and for the year
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So we run a pretty similar system to that,
That's
just
awesome.
not exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
loved what you said about hiring or like building your processes and your plan, putting your plans in action for thinking ahead, not
Yeah.
short term. That's something we recently started doing like this year for our forecast meeting. We just reversed our 3-year plan and figured out what it's going to take to get there. And now we know, now we're going to work backwards instead of forwards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's the principle of start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
I think Stephen Covey's book, right, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective
Mhm.
People, that was one of those things, is starting with the end in mind. And we have that conversation with our real estate agents too. Like, what do you want to do? What do
Yeah.
you want your business to look like next year? How many homes do you want to sell? How much
Sure.
money do you want to make?
Well,
For
that was
sure.
gonna be my next question is like with the market changing so quickly, like how are you kind of anticipating and making some of those adjustments, especially now, like the last couple of years have kind of been comfortable for real estate agents, especially ones that have been in the industry, and
Yeah.
easy for the ones that are new. So now I've seen that's completely changed like overnight. So what are you doing to kind of
Yeah,
pace that?
we've taken a very intentional approach of like helping our people develop the skills that are necessary to navigate conversations. It really comes down to the market. You can be successful in spite of the market. The market doesn't have to dictate whether or not you are successful. But as the market changes, sometimes you need to adjust your strategy. Sometimes you need to just be prepared for different types of conversations. To be perfectly honest, sometimes you need to work harder to achieve
Yeah.
the same level of results, right? And that's just a reality that we're telling our people. Like, hey, with the market slower than it was last year, you might have to just work harder,
Yeah.
and maybe that means more hours, or maybe it just means, more effort and intensity during the hours that you are working.
Strategic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
and different ways of going about things, different processes.
Yeah, but I mean, those things are out of our control, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I tell our people, like, focus on the things that you can control.
Mm-hmm.
We can't control what interest rates are. We can't control what type of inventory is out there. We can't control the market. We can't control what people hear on the news, but you can control how much you work, how hard you work, how many phone calls you make, the types of conversations you're having. You can control what you say, how you overcome objections.
Yeah.
So just focus on what you can control.
Yeah, smart.
Before the show, we were talking a little bit, and you said that Bluefield also does insurance and
Property management.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah.
Is your goal to be like the real estate one-stop shop, like mortgage, maybe get thrown in there somewhere here in the
Potentially.
future?
Yeah. Mortgage business is a whole different animal. This is
Yeah.
a lot more heavily regulated.
Yeah.
But I see that as definitely a possibility at some point down the
For
road.
sure.
But yeah, I mean, we're trying to provide a more holistic, more simple experience for our clients. So
Sure.
if they work with one of our agents to buy an investment property, we can manage it for them. We can do the homeowners insurance for them. So
Do
yeah,
you find
like you said,
difficulties trying to keep multiple hats, or multiple plates spinning with different companies?
And that's I see a lot of entrepreneurs. They get sucked into wanting to start so many different businesses in a short period of time, and they kind of get stretched too thin. Or even if it's the same business, they want to open a bunch of different locations in a really short period of time.
Regret.
Yeah. So I was in real estate. I had my license. I had the team. I had been doing this business for probably 4 years
Yeah.
before I started doing anything different.
Yeah.
And I had been approached by people before of wanting to start other things, but I really just wanted to be laser focused and get the core business to a certain point. And then I felt like I had the bandwidth to take on other things. And maybe I could be doing more, but I would rather do fewer things better than be doing 100 different things. So we've been doing property management now for about 3 years. The insurance, we started that about 2 years ago. So it's been 2 years since I've started a new business.
Yeah.
Of course I have that itch. Like I want to do a cool project. Mortgage sounds fun. There's a bunch of different things I could do, but we're also expanding geographically as well. So now we have an office in Greenville and an office in Spartanburg. We've got a handful of agents down in Columbia. We're planning to open an office down there this summer. So, we're still growing and expanding and doing different things, but I'm also very cautious, like not to spread myself too thin.
Sure.
A lot of times when you expand, it's more about having the right person that you can kind of put in charge of overseeing things.
Yeah.
So, that's been very beneficial for me, just growing the leadership team and having other people that I can, delegate to and rely on for
Count
certain
on,
things.
I feel like that's such an easy thing to do as an entrepreneur to like, you have just a taste of success and you're like, oh man, I got the Midas touch. I can do it all.
Yeah.
Which was kind of like what happened to me when I started in Charleston, and what I know now, I probably wouldn't have done it without the right management team in place, but you live and you learn.
Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
that.
Like we're expanding to Columbia right now, but, we don't have a leader there yet necessarily, like a broker. We're kind of taking it slow and making sure that we have the right person. So until we get that person in place, Columbia is still taking a lot of my time,
Yeah.
and we're looking at other markets like Charleston, Asheville, Atlanta. And where we go next is probably going to depend on just the relationships that we happen to build and who, if we find the right person, in Atlanta that we feel like is, maybe we'll go to Atlanta next. It really is just going to depend on having the right leadership.
For sure. Well, I know a great moving company in Charleston too.
Yeah.
I've been kind of dealing with that because when I moved to Greenville, I didn't even really do much market research. Just thought there was more expensive houses and that meant more money. But little did I know that meant less cash flow and less money to renovate. So I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of felt that pretty. It took just about 2 years now to kind of figure it out and start getting management in roles. And then we're looking into outcast to other locations like Charleston and Charlotte and stuff. But we kind of have to really sit down and get the processes figured out before we even think about that, because it would just eat us alive. Yeah. But it's kind of funny because there's always that like saying I heard one time was like that one moving truck or one plumbing truck wants to grow, goes to 2, but now 2 is making them lose money. So do they go back to 1 or do they go to 3 or 4? And that's like where you have to kind of make the adjustments.
For sure.
Yeah, it's like we're losing X amount per deal, but we'll make it up on volume.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like we have to take a loss during the winter. Like we lose money. We know we lose money December, January, February. We just do. It doesn't matter. Just because our overhead cost and the volume's not there, but we make, all our money March to October.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that can be difficult when you're first starting to scale your company and hire people. Like if you're just doing it all by yourself and you're working like, 80 hours a week, when you hire that first person, maybe there's enough to justify a full-time person. But, if you've got, I don't know, let's just say in real estate, just as an easy example for me to think of, as a real estate company, if we've got enough contracts to keep one transaction coordinator busy, then, as soon as we're just slightly above that, that person is swamped, but it's not enough yet to justify 2 full-time people.
For sure.
Yeah.
So making that jump and hiring your first person or your second person or your third person, the more people you have, the easier it gets because there's less strain on your infrastructure, if that makes
For
sense.
sure.
Yeah. I'm at that turning point now. We have a admin that's kind of becoming operations general manager because her role is becoming too much to do and too many responsibilities. So we're trying to figure out which ones she can focus on, give off to another admin, but we're not right at that. Like we can't hire another full-time person, but maybe somebody part-time to kind of help out. We're trying to figure out what responsibilities to give them that would benefit all of us. But it's crazy because once you build one thing, you just continue to get busier and then you try to do another thing and just busier and it never smooths out.
Well, what's crazy now is like we got VAs everywhere. So like, you can get a VA for next to nothing.
Yeah.
If they can fill that role, I mean, I think that's a good way to kind of like lighten the workload and still scale your business.
Yeah. Like I got to figure that stuff out, like taking calls and just stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, we've tried VAs in the past, and I know some people that have done it well and had success with it. We've never really had very good success with VAs. Just people in different countries, sometimes their internet connection isn't as reliable and different things like that. So
I like the chatbot stuff. That's pretty interesting to see. I mean, I don't know how many people want to deal with that so much, but I think the better it gets, it might not even be an issue because I've seen even on Google where they have like the person can answer the phone and take your information and you would never know it's a computer.
Like
that technology is getting a lot better. It's scary to think about what's going to be available like 5-10 years from now. I think that's going to really disrupt a lot of industries.
Yeah.
Especially like inside sales or like customer service call centers.
For sure.
So you can just have an AI.
Well, now they can tell, they can do the research on the person, like, because you can, like, when somebody visits your website, you can retarget them. Now you have your email, all that. So, this AI essentially could look up their Facebook, know what they like, and
Yeah.
become the perfect salesperson
Yeah, that's
to
crazy.
sell that
Yeah,
person.
you can integrate it all completely. That's what's going to be crazy.
I'm trying to figure out how broke I'm going to be in 5 to 10 years. I'm going to be calling all these places, and they're going to know exactly what I like. And I'm gonna be like,
But I think the benefit is a computer can't move any boxes, so you should be all right.
no, I'm talking about me personally.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
when I
yeah.
call to buy something, they're going to close me every time.
Oh yeah, you're just gonna
Yeah.
buy everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Chris, you want this hot tub? Yeah.
Yes.
You talked me into it, brother.
I need that hot dog. Give me
Yeah.
the deluxe package.
Yeah, I mean, they might have self-driving moving trucks at some point. I don't
Yeah.
know how far away we are from like autonomous robots that have the dexterity to like move boxes and stuff.
Yeah.
I
like
think
that.
we're a lot further than what
Yeah.
people really think we are.
Yeah. I've seen painting like robots that they can set up on a grid and it'll paint the whole room. I was like, wow, I didn't think that ever would come around.
Well, you think they have this stuff, but then they have to mass produce it, and then they have to quality control on a mass scale. So yeah, they can build 1, 2, 10 prototypes, but can they pump out hundreds or
Yeah.
thousands or tens
Enough
of
to change
thousands,
them.
and the quality remain the same throughout? So that's a long process in itself, right?
Yeah. Unless those robots become self-taught.
Unless those
Yeah.
robots are building themselves.
You just put them in the room and be like,
yeah.
paint this, and they're like, painting. Just- it's like, oh god, this is awesome. I don't think we're far from that. I don't know. Not with those like the robot that Tesla's putting out, the Tesla
Yeah.
bot and stuff like that. So